If you're ever watching a movie and you ask yourself, was this intentional by the director? If that director is Bong Joon-Ho, then the answer is yes, it is intentional. In his masterpiece Parasite, every decision is intentional. The way he uses the camera, from framing to blocking to composition, is used to elevate the story and theme. For those that haven't seen it, Parasite is a 2019 film about a poor family, the Kims, as they essentially infiltrate a rich family, the Parks, and become part of their house staff without the rich family knowing that they're all related. They do this by tricking the Parks into thinking they're more qualified for the jobs, and then by eliminating the current staff, whether that be by making the Parks think that the driver is a pervert or by making them think that the maid has a contagious disease. To see how Bong Joon-Ho uses his visuals, take a look at this scene early on in the film. The Kims are folding pizza boxes to get some extra money, but when the pizza place comes to pick it up, they won't pay them because so many of the boxes are messed up. Watch how he uses the framing and blocking to show how the family gets out of this situation. The shot starts out with the worker alone with plenty of space on either side. The other worker and the son are in the background. First, the son approaches from the background and stands to her right. He does so in a playful way, signifying a calmer tone. After that, the daughter approaches from the left, slowly and calmly. It happens so casually it isn't obvious at first what is happening, but as the scene progresses, you realize that they are flanking the worker, making it very claustrophobic for her. Once the other worker in the back starts speaking, the daughter moves over and blocks him with her body as the mom takes her place on the left flank. They have completely blocked all of her escape and ability to focus on anything except them. This is how the scene starts, this is how the scene ends. But their movements are so calm and slow that it's a slow and almost unnoticeable build until it's too late. They have completely pressured her physically and mentally, and they get paid for the boxes. This is just one example of Bong Joon-Ho's framing and blocking. There are common motifs within the frame throughout the whole film. Obviously, a running theme within the film is the difference between the poor and the rich, and they discern the difference through three main ways: through up and down, through side walls, and through crossing the line. The up and down framing is apparent throughout the film. The opening shot of the film shows the window to the Kim family home being at the top of their wall, but reveals that the top of their wall is the bottom of the street. They live under the ground with only a small slit at the top for the world above, like someone gasping for air through a little hole. They have to hang their socks close to the ceiling for it to dry. They literally have to climb up to their toilet. They are literally framed as below sewage, below laundry, below the streets that people piss on. To make matters worse, as we see later in the film when the family runs back to their home, they have to go down an almost comically sloped set of stairs down into the depths below. There's a huge storm and their home is completely flooded as they live below in the aquifer. This lower depths location is also paralleled later in the film when we find out what is below the Park's house. Crossing the line becomes a common motif throughout the film that is verbalized by the father of the Parks. Mr. Kim becomes the driver for the Parks, and Mr. Park talks to his wife about how Mr. Kim gets close to crossing the line but never does. This can be interpreted in a couple different ways, and one of the ways actually coincide with Bong's visual language. When Mr. Park says crossing the line, he means the metaphorical boundary. Don't cross the line by going too far or overstepping his boundaries as a driver. He's saying that Mr. Kim needs to stay in his place. Crossing the line can manifest physically through framing with many lines within the frame being crossed. This shot of the stairs show the line being crossed as well as they climb through the ranks, paralleled later by the descent back to the lower depths. The line that is crossed is the metaphorical boundary between the wealthy and the poor class, both the line between having money and not, and the line between the behavior of both classes. Mr. Park doesn't want Mr. Kim to cross the line in his behavior, as his kindness to the lower class is conditional to their submission of etiquette that the rich have deemed okay for the poor to act. And he doesn't want Mr. Kim to cross the line of wealth and become rich like him. He wants Mr. Kim to stay poor and to be subservient. She says that they aren't just nice and rich, they are nice because they are rich. So when the Kims cross this line on their ascent up the stairs, it displays the Parks unknowingly guiding them past the line. Parasite also uses boxy framing and lines to emphasize the theme of class. A box is impenetrable from all sides in its two-dimensional existence. The only way to get inside a box is to go into 3 dimensions and enter that way. The Park's house is an immaculate contemporary house walled off from the rest of society in this sleek and modern utopia. The boxy framing of Parasite mimics the sharp corners and sleek architecture of the Park's house and walls, as they are indicative of the family's wealth and status and the inability to reach it from the outside. Like I said, a box is impenetrable from all sides. It would take a parasite to crawl into it from another angle. The walls of the Park's house represent this impenetrability, and the Kims are finding three-dimensional ways to get in. Is that the fault of the Kims, or is it the fault of who built the walls? In Parasite, the different lines of the frame represent different parts of the theme of class. Horizontal lines signify the difference between the lower depths of the poor and the ivory tower of the high class. Vertical lines signify societal boundaries and behavior and etiquette. Put these together and we get the impenetrable box of wealth. Bong Joon-Ho also uses diagonal lines to signify ascent and descent between the classes. These lines can be seen throughout the film. This all shows Bong Joon-Ho's mastery of visual storytelling. The screenplay by itself has its strong themes of class disparity, but the visual language of Parasite elevates this beyond just what is written. Parasite is one of the greatest films of the century so far, and one of the most important modern classics. Years down the line, this film will still be discussed as part of the film canon, the same way Casablanca and Citizen Kane are, and the visual framing is only the surface of what Parasite has to offer.